everybody, it is time for an extremely overdue book haul. I haven't done one since March of this year and we're now in August. At least when I'm filming this, we're in August. It's probably going to be a while when I'm uploading this, but yeah. It has been so long that I've been to London on 2 separate visits where I bought a lot of books and I still haven't hauled any of them. So what better way to do another video, because again that has been a while as well, by doing a massive long overdue book haul to get back into it and to show you all the books that I've bought in the past couple of months. I'm just going to start with it because you probably know how a book haul works by now, and yeah, I'm going to start with all the books that I bought during my London trip in April. In April I went to London with my dad. We did a lot of fun things. We went to Windsor Castle, just you know, a nice weekend, had lots of fun, and obviously I went to Waterstones on Piccadilly Circus because that is like the biggest bookstore in Europe, I think. It is massive. And by the way, we also went to Foyles, which is also close by. There's also a massive Foyles. Just, you know, there are many bookshop opportunities in London. There's no shortage to bookshops there. So in total on that trip, I bought 7 books. Which is kind of, yeah, that was kind of a lot. I managed to bring them all back home with me and I'm going to show them to you. Right now I'm going to start with those. The first one that I bought during that trip is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, a book that you've probably at least heard about. This is, as it says on the cover, the must-read TikTok sensation. This is the book that was first independently published, became a massive hype on TikTok, and then it was published by a traditional publishing house. I think it's about a year ago that this entire hype went down. Everybody was talking about it, everybody was loving it. And you know me, when there is a hype that massive, I am naturally curious about it. And yeah, this is the hardcover. This is the new edition that is traditionally published. It's not that new, it has been here for a while, you know, but yeah, I got it. Very curious about it. The story I couldn't really tell you anything about, which is going to be a current theme of this haul, or a recurring theme I should say. All I know is that it's dark academia. It's about 6 people or 6 students. And that is all I know. I think it's going to be interesting. I hope it's going to be interesting. I'm going to save this one for autumn because I really do want to read some dark academia during autumn. Let's see if this book is going to blow me away as well. Next up I have The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. This is a retelling of the famous book Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, but from the perspective of the middle sister, Mary Bennet. At least I think it's mostly a retelling. I'm not sure if the story is going to continue outside of the story. Maybe it is. This is a book that I've seen in bookstores for a while before I decided to buy it. And the thing is, you know, retellings are always interesting, and in this case specifically, Mary Bennet, the middle sister, is always the one who is described as the only Bennet sister who is not pretty, who is not beautiful, who's not interesting. She's kind of the forgotten and uninteresting Bennet sister, so she's obviously the perfect choice to make a retelling about. And I think that's probably going to be relatable to a lot of people, being the forgotten one, being the one nobody really cares about. I know that is a story that I personally really would love to read more about. So this is the time, or back in April it was the time that I finally decided to pick it up and take it with me. And it's a big one. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very curious. Then I have Mr. Wilder and Me by Jonathan Q. Not sure how we're going to pronounce that in the English way, but this is slightly historical fiction. It takes place in the 1970s and it's about a young girl who meets a famous Hollywood director and gets involved in a film project. That's again the general idea of it. To be honest, I don't really remember why I picked this one up, mostly because I thought the story sounded kind of interesting. I do like the vibe of a bit of older Hollywood, even though this is in the 1970s, which is, well, it is old to me. Kind of like that vibe, and also it's supposed to take place in summer, which is probably why I should read it soon before summer is over, which is going to be very quickly now. Don't have a lot of thoughts on it yet. I do like that it's very short, so if I'm ever in the mood for a short book, this will probably be the perfect one for me. The next book I got during that trip is The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. This is again historical fiction, but it's a book that takes place in the Roman Empire in Pompeii. It's about a girl named Amara who is forced to work as a slave in a brothel, who's very much determined to get out of here and start a better life, I guess, from the premise. It's also, from what I gather, the first book in a trilogy about women in Pompeii, which sounds so interesting to me. As you know, I do love historical fiction a lot, and I don't have a lot of historical fiction that takes place in the ancient Roman Empire, so this is kind of something that I haven't really read a lot about. Sounds like a very promising story, sounds like something that would be very interesting to me. Then I also bought the book Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, which is the story of a transgender woman named Reese, who used to be in a relationship with another transgender woman named Amy, but then Amy detransitioned back into a man and is now called Ames. He got his boss pregnant, so she's now having a baby, and Ames is suggesting to Reese that they all raise the baby together. That sounds very confusing. I think I got the whole mix right, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. It sounded like a very unique story to me, at least a unique story to me personally, because I've never read something like that. I saw it in London during the trip a lot, this title, so I think like the first few times I resisted buying it, but then the final time that I saw it in the bookstore, I just bought it. I also really liked that it had these cool red pages. I'm always a sucker for colored pages. I've actually tried to start with this book shortly after I came back from London that time, but I was in a horrible reading mood, a horrible reading slump, so I didn't make it past the first 2 chapters. So I'm going to pick this up to read another time when I'm in a better mood for it. But yeah, I also bought this during the London trip. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to tell about it. Then I got Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel, which is the second book in the Thomas Cromwell trilogy by Hilary Mantel, which is mostly about Thomas Cromwell, who was a very important figure at the court of King Henry VIII. So I've talked about this before, but I am very much interested in the entire history of King Henry VIII and all the people who lived at his court. It's basically what I did my thesis about. I've studied history. This is kind of like my favorite subject in the entire world. I already own the first book in this series, which is called Wolf Hall. I haven't read it yet, but this time around I saw the second book, which has a big focus on Anne Boleyn, who was the second wife of King Henry VIII and Queen of England. Anne Boleyn is my all-time favorite historical figure. I am obsessed with her. When I was in London, obviously because I'm in London, there's the Tower of London, there's all these historical things. I was very much in a historical mood and I really wanted to buy something that has to do with Anne Boleyn whilst I was in London, which is why I bought the second book in the series, even though I haven't read or know that I like the first book yet. There's also a third book in the series, which I have not bought yet, but I think the main reason why I just picked this one up is because it's about Anne Boleyn. I'm pretty sure that even if I don't like the first book, I will still give the second book a chance because I like Anne Boleyn so much. So this is going on my historical fiction shelf, especially my Tudor historical fiction shelf, which is a collection that is growing by the day almost. The final book I bought during that trip was kind of an interesting one, and it's called Anneliese by David Gillingham. No, Gilham. This is a historical retelling of the story of Anne Frank, which is something that sounds so interesting and so weird to me. In case you don't know, Anneliese is Anne Frank's full first name. So that is the first thing that drew my attention, because this name sounds very Dutch or German, because Anne Frank originally was German. So I was kind of confused when I saw it, and then I read the premise, and it's basically the idea that this story is that Anne Frank did survive the concentration camp, and it's about her going back home, going back to her diary, and basically her trying to figure out what to do with it herself. Which is a very interesting what-if focal point of the story. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I feel like this book is going to be very good or it's going to be very bad, because with a topic like this it can go either way. But I am very much intrigued by this premise, and I do hope that it will be executed in a good way. And when I finally pick it up, we will see. Okay, there is another book. It's technically a book that I also got during that London trip, and that is the what do you call it? The musical booklet that I got when I went to the musical 6. I just wanted to give it a quick shout out because I went to the musical 6 for the very first time during the London trip in April, and it was amazing. If you don't know, 6 is a musical about the 6 wives of King Henry VIII, and as we talked about before, that is my favorite historical subject. I've been obsessed with it since I was 14 years old. For reference, I'm now 26 years old, so this is an obsession that has lasted almost a lifetime, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But 6 is the 6 wives, and it's told in the format of a concert. The songs are all very modern. Every single wife tells about their story, and the idea is that they are trying to see who's had it the worst as being a wife of King Henry VIII. Because in case you don't know much about this historical subject, he was not a very good husband. And yeah, it is a very interesting subject. And I got like the booklet because I collect those every time I go to a musical for the first time. I get one of these booklets, so I had to get one of 6 as well. So I just really quickly wanted to show you there are cute pictures in there that I'm not getting. Oh yeah, look, it's so, if you ever have the opportunity to go to 6, the musical, do it, because, do we have a better picture here? Because it is amazing. You will love it. I'm obsessed. I'm trying to convince everybody to go see it, if it's of course possible for you, because that's obviously not the case for almost everybody. But it was amazing, and yeah, cannot wait to see it again. Hopefully sometime soon, next time I'm in London. So that was it for the first London trip, but then there was also a second London trip in July, because then there was YALC, the Young Adult Literature Festival in London. I'm not going to talk about the whole YALC experience too much. Maybe I will do that sometime in another video, but I feel like it has been a while. All the vlogs have been posted, all the things have been posted. I'm not sure if it's that relevant anymore. All I can say is that I went to YALC with my booktube friends, with Brit, Sabine, Leora and Leonie. We met a lot of other booktubers there. It was an amazing trip. I had so much fun. Just to really quickly give you a summary. But I also bought 5 books whilst I was there, because of course there were a lot of discounts. I just had to get some books, and I will show those to you as well. So the first book that I got was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Yes, I have gone on the Emily Henry train. She is a very popular author at the moment. She writes romance stories, and I've caved and I bought one of them. I've actually also read Book Lovers already. This is the story of a, oh my god, what was she again? A publishing agent and an editor, and what happens when those two get together, or like maybe are forced to see a lot of each other. It's very, very cute. I'm not going to do a full wrap up because that is for another video, but I'm very happy that I got it because I really loved it, and I think the Emily Henry hype is very much deserved. The next book I got is Matrix by Lauren Groff. This book is historical fiction, and it was advertised to me as being about lesbian nuns. You know, what else do I want from a book? That was basically enough for me to buy it. It was also one of those books that Waterstones was really, really pushing. It was basically everywhere, hardcover, paperback, on every single floor almost. So it was kind of those Waterstones book of the month, I guess. But a book about lesbian nuns, what is not to love about it? I haven't read it yet, but I hope to do so sometime soon, which is the case with all of the books that I buy. You never know if it's going to be really soon or if it's going to be 5 years. Both those things are possible, but it sounds like a very interesting book, and I can definitely say that I don't have a book about lesbian nuns in my collection yet, so it's a new one when it comes to that subject. Another historical fiction that I bought, Circus of Wonders by Elizabeth McNeil, which is about a girl named Nell who joins the circus because she has very peculiar skin. She has all these spots, so she gets to join the circus as being a leopard girl. It takes place in England in the 19th century. Then again, that's all I know, but I did really love the cover, and I love the subject of a circus. I'm very curious to see what it's all about. Again, that's pretty much it why I was interested, but do look at the cover because it's very cute and very pretty. Then the next book that I bought is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This one I bought because Juno Dawson was actually one of the authors who was present at YALC, who was signing books and everything. I saw this book, I read the premise, I was immediately intrigued. It is basically about a witch coven who is in service of the UK government, of the Queen and everything, who helps with supernatural things that are happening. I feel like I'm doing a very bad premise of the book, but that is kind of the idea. I bought it so I could have it immediately signed. So that is what happened. It is signed, personalized. Juno Dawson, by the way, she was so nice and so sweet. So it was really nice to, you know, have a book signed. This is the only book that I got signed during YALC because basically apart from that the lines were way too long and there was just no possibility to really get books signed by the authors that I was interested in. But I'm very happy that at least one book was signed, and the cover, like, look at this pink look at this edition. I'm very curious about the story. I want to read it again during autumn because witches and everything sounds like something that is suitable during autumn. Very happy that I got this edition. And then later during that trip, after the signing with Juno Dawson, I also bought one of her other books, which is the Gender Games. And this is non-fiction and it is about Juno Dawson's own experience with being transgender and just about gender in general. I heard from a lot of people that her non-fiction books are very good, very interesting. So yeah, I was on a book buying high, I guess, so I really wanted some of her other work. It's kind of something completely different, you know. On the one hand we have witches and like this very interesting story, and then we have also an interesting story, but it's definitely not witches and magical elements. It's very much down to earth and about real life stuff. Very curious to see how those writing styles are going to compare, and yeah, cannot wait to read this one as well. So those were all the London books, but I also have a couple of books that I just bought in between in the past couple of months whenever there was like a new release or something, or a book that I was interested in. I'm going to talk about those as well, of course. I just have a clean slate. And then I have hauled all the books that I bought in the past couple of months. First of all, one of my favorite authors came with a new release. That is Kate Quinn, and the new release is The Diamond Eye. I love Kate Quinn so much. In case you don't know, she mostly writes historical fiction books that take place around World War II. The Diamond Eye is no exception, and this one in particular is about a Russian girl named Mila and her young son, who live in Russia, and then World War II starts. I don't really know that much else about the premise, but I know that it's a Kate Quinn story. I feel like her last couple of books are kind of the same when it comes to writing style, when it comes to the types of characters and the way they are written. I am a sucker for those kinds of books. I love her work so much, so I know that this one will be amazing as well. Again, I'm also saving this one for when the weather gets a little bit colder, a little bit more autumnal, because I feel like it's more suitable for that. You know, it has a snowy cover. It looks like it's going to be cold in Russia and everything. Cannot wait for this to read it, because I know I will just enjoy it so much. Two books that I can talk about at once, and those are The Dragon Republic and The Burning God by R.F. Kuang, which are book 2 and 3 in the Poppy War trilogy. During my vacation in Greece 2 weeks ago, I read The Poppy War, the first book, and I really enjoyed it. More about that also in a wrap-up that I still need to film, but I enjoyed it so much that when I got back, I went to the bookstore and I bought books 2 and 3 so I can continue with the series. By the way, this entire series is a fantasy series inspired by Chinese history, and it's about a girl named Rin who gets into one of the most prestigious schools, and there's also a war going on, or a war that is about to happen. Lots and lots and lots more there is to the story. But I'm not going to talk about that in a premise because it's just too much to summarize. I feel like this is one of those fantasy books that you really should read for yourself to experience what it's all about. But yeah, I have books 2 and 3. Really curious to see how this story is going to continue, because the way the Poppy War ended, I'm not sure. I just really don't know. I hope it's going to be good, and yeah, very happy to add this to my fantasy collection. I also bought My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Mosgiev. Apologies if that is not the right pronunciation. This is a book that I've also recently finished. It's a very weird one. It's about a girl who never gets named, the main character, who is kind of depressed and is not really happy with her life, even though she is very beautiful, she is rich, she basically has everything, but she does not feel very satisfied with life, so she decides to take a lot of sleeping medication and to just sleep her entire year of rest and relaxation, and when the year is over she will feel better somehow, she decides. I'd heard about this book before and how it was supposed to be a bit weird and a bit, yeah, different. And that is why I bought it at the time. Again, I've already finished this one. We'll talk about it in the future wrap-up. I can say that I really enjoyed this one, but I also can understand why not everybody will enjoy it, because it is kind of a peculiar story. The next book is again a historical fiction. That genre is definitely in the majority in this video. It's The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Mass. It takes place in the 19th century. Yes, the 19th century in Paris, and it's about this annual event of the Mad Women's Ball, and that's all I know. The reason why I bought it is because I'm pretty sure that a colleague from work, or like the intern who was at work last year, her name is Brit. Brit, if you're watching this, shout out to you. She talked about this book and she said it was really good and really interesting. I don't remember much else about it. That is just the reason why it was kind of on my radar and why I bought it. I think I bought it also like back in April. It has been a while. It's not a very big book, which I like because many of the other books on this list are very big. Yeah, hope it's going to be interesting. Brit, I will talk to you about it once I read it. I'm pretty sure that you were the one who loved this book. If you're not, then sorry. And lastly, I almost forgot about this one, but I also got another Emily Henry book. Not in London, but just here in my local bookstore. It's a very big one, but it's still local to me. Beach read, which is also very good. Also already read this one. This one is about two authors who are both in vacation houses near a beach at a lake. Also romance, also the things that you would expect with romance. Also not going to give a full wrap up. We'll do that in a future video. But yeah, I bought this one again because I was on the Emily Henry hype train and I wanted to read more of her work. So that's it for this massive book haul with all the books that I bought in the last couple of months. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked this video. There are going to be a lot of new releases in the upcoming months, so maybe the next book haul won't take as long, but who knows. Yeah, I just do hope you've enjoyed being with me in another video. It has been a while. I do want to do it more regularly now. Please tell me in the comments about a book you've read recently, or if you've bought recently, or if you borrowed it from the library recently. Whatever, just a book that has been in your life recently in one way or another. I would love to hear about it. And then, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this video. And hopefully I will see you again very soon in one of my next videos. And until then, bye!